listening to Take 22, a media production podcast hosted by Matt Gray.
Welcome to episode 3 of Take 22. Nearly 4 months now since I've checked in and been able to get some time with this podcast, which I was very excited to begin and then start being able to talk about media production and my experiences out there in the field and in editing and all of that stuff. When I started this in December of 2021, and normally that time of year, I have so much free time, like generally between the beginning of December through the end of the year, I really don't do anything. Well, that's how it used to be in a former life, I guess. And then I really have time off from the beginning of December through about mid-February. And then everything starts ramping back up again in the world of media production. Well, that was always my experience. But this particular year, my primary client had some huge needs at the end of the year that rolled into January. And I woke up today realizing, wow, it's going to be May pretty soon. And today is actually April 22nd. And today is technically my first day off since maybe Christmas, I think. I'm sitting here I have nothing that I need to edit today and nothing that I need to shoot today. And I thought I need to sit down and just reminisce here on what's happened over the past few months. It's been absolutely crushingly busy, which is great, right? That's what we all want. If you're a videographer or anything like that, you want to be constantly busy. And thankfully, I am. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be working and to be improving and learning new things and creating. I love that. But when the well runs dry out of creativity, it can be a grind. Like, I really need to be able to recharge. And I'm one of those types that, I don't recharge by going on vacation and doing things. I just need to sit and be quiet in a dark room, maybe watch some movies or good shows I've been trying to catch up on, but really just not have the computer monitors on and not be messing with my gear or anything like that. And I think today is really the first day I feel like I'm recharging a little. Now, I spent the first part of the day running errands with my wife, so we bought ammo and meat from the butcher and soil and gardening things. But now here in the afternoon, I can sit down and do whatever I'd like. So I wanted to take some time and get an episode of Take 22 in and talk about some things that I really wanted to get to. And one of those is a pet peeve of mine, just lack of planning, coordination, and communication when it comes to video production, or really anything. It is such a pet peeve of mine, and I don't understand why some people might not invest so much time into that, because it saves you so much time on the back end of really anything you do, right? But it's sure to provide a better product or service in the end if you plan for what you're doing. And I had a client that I started working with at the end of last year, and I think they became just a perfect example of planning and coordination and having their stuff together, which then let me come in, do my thing, and then in the end, we had this really great, well, in my opinion, really great product. This video that I made for this nonprofit athletic league. It's called West Coast Impact, which is an athletic league for homeschooling. I can't speak. It's an athletic league for homeschooled students, and it's faith-based. So very family-oriented. They do volleyball, they do basketball of all ages, And somebody from their organization had reached out to me via a referral from somebody else I've been lucky enough to work with in the past. And we had a brief communication about what they were looking for and what I would do. And then the administration of this organization was absolutely on the ball throughout with communication with me, understanding what it was I wanted to come in and capture. They were very open to some suggestions. Like originally, and this happens with a lot of clients too, especially with clients that deal with organizations, or there's maybe a lot of people involved in the administration of the organization, and they want to have like everybody who's ever been involved sit down and say something for a video, right? This has happened to me a lot with school districts. I'll go and I don't want to call out names, but I'll work with people and they'll say, yeah, we're going to go, we got to record 6 people at this school. We're going to capture 6 people, 6 different interviews. And you show up and they go, okay, we just want to add 1 more. And then it's 2 more. And then, well, since we're here, why don't we get this? And it's, it's difficult. It's challenging to explain to people on the spot. That only increases all of the work I have to do exponentially. If the fewer speakers you have in a given video, number one, I think the more an audience can connect with those speakers, because if you have 20 speakers and everyone says one sentence, well, that's just kind of a mess. There's no real message, I think, that can get across that way. Now, can it ever be done? Sure. But I'm just saying overall, in my experience, the fewer speakers you have, the better, because then those people, you pick the best people to sit down and tell this story or be a spokesperson for your product or organization. And then it gives an audience a chance to connect with these people, and it gives them a chance to bring out the best in themselves on camera. And those are all things that are good for the end product, but for the editor, for the camera person who has to set up audio and lighting and blah, blah, blah for all of these things, you're creating more work for me on the day. And then when I go into post, it's not just, oh, I'll go grab that statement. I have to listen to everything this person says. I have to select the statements that could potentially go into this project we're doing. Then I have to take everyone's potential use statements and try to craft a narrative and find a best way to tell the story with all of that stuff. Now, sometimes you want all the options in the world, but if we're talking 1 or 2 days of production and then post is costing several $100s a day, I have to tell people, look, you're adding 2 days, you're adding 4 days of cost. Is bringing in so-and-so worth an extra $1,200 to you in editing? And that's when they're like, wide-eyed, no, it's not. Whatever you'd like to do is fine. But West Coast Impact was brilliant. And they had a vision and what they wanted. And then I kind of took that and said, well, here's what I can do with it. And they're like, cool, go with it. And it was super easy because really anytime I'm working with a school district or a nonprofit like West Coast Impact and they want to do a project, there is homework I don't just show up with a camera and say, well, let's see what we can get. For instance, with West Coast Impact, I told them you need to pick like the 5 or 6 best people to speak about your organization. And maybe we do the founders and we do a couple of coaches and we do a couple of student athletes. And then we find specific things for them to talk about this organization. So they're not inundated with a list of questions and everyone's kind of got their own little area they're going to talk about. And then we take all of that targeted speaking and we already kind of know what our story is going to be ahead of time. And with West Coast Impact, we had to split up the shoot days by like 6 weeks. It was a couple of Saturdays, 6 weeks apart or a month apart or so. But it was, each time we shot, it was perfect. Everyone's there on time. Of course, it's a well-organized organization and they're punctual. They got to be places on time, but you don't always get to work with clients who are on time. More and more and more often these days, it seems that punctuality just doesn't matter. But they're on time. They were so warm and welcoming. I was there with my youngest son who was helping me kind of watch gear, but also get B-roll. So when I was in doing an interview in this area we had set up, he's out running around with a DJI Osmo or my A7S III getting B-roll of the action that's going on. And it was really just a great experience to work with such a professional organization that was also very friendly, easy to work with. They were well organized, and they trusted the artists they hired to come in and do this job. And it's hard to do, right? When you have a vision and you hire somebody, you say, hey, this is my vision, I want you to do this. But if you're hiring an artist, you're kind of hiring that person. Hopefully you've taken a look at what else they've done. And so you kind of have a general idea of where they're coming from. And kind of my wheelhouse is highlighting nonprofits and organizations like that or businesses and really finding the story that's going on here and telling the audience that story. And I go into it just like the audience is me. I want to know, what is your organization about? Why do people come here? How can they help? What do the kids take away from this? What do the coaches love about this? I'm trying to find out. So you're basically a journalist too. And that's part of really what I love about videography or doing media production like this is that outside of weddings, which is generally the same thing every time, it's not, but it is. When you're doing these types of gigs where I'm covering an athletic league, there's a whole lot going on here and you're walking into it fresh, and I get to tell, I get to make a mini movie and tell what's going on here. So I love that kind of a clean slate opportunity where you come in, you're targeting making about maybe a 3-minute video, but telling the story and having fun. And man, I love when sports are involved because I have so much fun shooting sports. And we shot on 2 days, my son and I. One was in October, one was in beginning of December. And then it took me probably in total about 5 days in post to create the finished video, which I'll put in the link, which I'll put a link in the description of this podcast to that video, if you're curious to see how it turned out. So overall, it was a fun project, and that's something that I was doing, in addition to my regular job at the beginning of the year, which was, again, so busy. I was doing a lot of dietary supplement explainer videos and a lot of related things to that and related to the actual project that's a part of. Just was doing a lot of that stuff. So being able to do something like a West Coast Impact while doing all that kind of more technical type of editing was fun. Although even with the supplement explainer videos, I got to do a lot of fun macro videography and photography. So that was fun and something that I don't get to do a whole lot. But a big takeaway from this West Coast Impact experience that I had is that once I delivered the video, and thankfully they loved it, you never know. You ever submit that video to anybody and then you're like, well, this is probably the worst thing I've ever made and everyone's going to hate it. Does anybody else feel that way? Because I feel that way only every time I render a video. So it's probably a good thing. You're always trying to strive to be better, but there's just something about that. You're always waiting on that validation, and a lot of times doesn't come. And I know a lot of wedding videographers will deal with the same stuff too, because the couple finally gets their video and then you might not hear a thing back from them, and then you think it was awful. and when they've done really amazing work. So it's just, people don't really think to give a lot of feedback or anything about that. And that's fine. That's just human nature. But hey, us videographers need the validation. We need to know that we did the job for you. But one thing that stood out was at the end, they took the file, I put it on Google Drive, and once they had it, all they did was re-upload it to their YouTube channel. Now, they don't use their YouTube channel for really much of anything. It's not like a channel you would promote or anything. It's just they happen to have one and they put this on it. And it just, sat there. I mean, there's no proper description or title, like none of the YouTube stuff you'd need to know how to do for YouTube to extend your reach. I mean, YouTube is Google, so you need to have thumbnails that are metadata driven, and your video your file should have metadata in it, which the file I gave them did, but also in your title, in your description, and they could be linking in their description to their website and everything. And I just noticed that, it was just there and done. So it brought me to a realization that, honestly, because I dealt with this last year with a certain school district, did a ton of videos for them. And then none of them were used, even though the project was extremely urgent. They just weren't promoted. So I don't know if they're used internally or what. And it's not like, look, it's not like these were bad videos. These were great videos. They're exactly what they needed and great for the purpose. But I think a lot of the times businesses and organizations, they don't have a plan for promotion of the videos after they have them in their hand. They just go, oh, this is great. And then maybe they put it on a website. Maybe they, they'll send it to friends, or they put it on their Facebook page or something like that. But I think it's important, and maybe everyone else knows this, but I'm just kind of realizing this now. It's important to have that discussion with your clients ahead of time about what are your plans for promoting this piece that we're making together. Because it's kind of an arrow in the heart when you killed yourself to make this fantastic thing for a client and they love it and you're proud of it, and then nothing happens with it whatsoever. So I think it's important to have a conversation and say, what's your plan? Well, we're going to put it on the website. I'm like, okay, do you have social media? Do you know how to use social media? Do you want me to make some, stories or TikTok style clips from this so that you can promote the fact that you have this video, drive the traffic to where you need to drive them to? This video should be a call to action, and there should be different ways for you to use it to get the value out of it. I mean, if you're paying thousands of dollars to have media production done, you want to try to get that back. You have a purpose for doing this. So, the plan should be not just be, let's make a video. It needs to be, let's make a video for this specific purpose, and here's the plan. And this may be an area for other videographers to say, I can also do that. If you're good with social media, if you can set up a YouTube channel for your client, or show them how, or, charge to consult with them on how to do this, or charge to set it up for them so that they can run it, or you can run it. It's another opportunity for line items in the invoice. You know what I mean? But in addition, you are doing something for a client that's helping them, and it might add a bit to your personal value when dealing with all clients. So that's something that stuck out with me. And going forward, I'm definitely going to address that with freelance clients of what their plans might be. Another project I got to do was I reached out to a local business. It's a fish store. It's Aqua Aquarium in Rockland, California. And I go to them to buy my fish. I keep small nanofish, and so I have a couple of aquariums. It's nothing too crazy, but that's the place I like to go. And when I thought I was going to have some free time at the beginning of the year or at the end of last year, I had reached out to the store and asked if they wouldn't mind if I came in and took some video and photos of things going on in the store and maybe gave them some social media pieces. But I really wanted to use my Laowa probe lens to go into the tanks and get some shots and put my GoPro in some of their tanks, things like that. That was just my self-interest of wanting to do that. Well, then I had the idea of maybe it could be, I could go in there and it would actually be a full video for a client I work with for their YouTube channel. So I edit for Girl Talks Fish, and I thought that Irene might want to use the content of me going in there to make a video, kind of lighten her load, put something else out, and she didn't have to shoot anything for it really. So we decided to do that. But the store didn't get back to me until I think it was early January or so. I had reached out to them in November, so it took a couple months, but they were incredibly warm and welcoming also, and communicated with me very well. Once we were in the thread of communication, it rolled really, really quick. Irene, who's just an amazing person, one of the most incredible individuals I've met, although I haven't met her in person yet. She lives in Colorado and I'm here in California, but working with her has been a dream. Oh, I can't wait to tell. Now I got to tell you about working with her. So I edit for Irene, right? And I've been editing for her now, I guess, about 10 months, 8 months, 10 months. I can't quite recall when I started. It was early last summer, I think. And when she sends me a project, she has notes about what it is, and if there's any specifics that need to happen, like, particular image needs to go here or some text needs to lay here. It's never much. It's very, very minimal. So it's not, she pretty much just gives me full creative freedom. Here's some things that definitely need to make it into the video and have at it. But she provides meticulous A-roll and B-roll. I mean, the B-roll, the clips are labeled and renamed the clips. It's not just the camera file number or anything like that. She renames the clips specifically to be what it needs to be, how you can identify it based on what she's talking about. And then she puts them in individual folders. She uses, an online file transfer. She uses a OneDrive, and she'll put a folder of B-roll about this topic in, as its own folder. So when I download everything onto a drive, and then I'll build my library in Final Cut, or the library's already built for her, but I'll, make a new event for this particular video. And when I import the files, just, import the whole folder that I've got from her, it's automatically organized. And that's because of how good she organizes her footage when giving it to an editor. And it saves me so much time. It's just fantastic to work with because everything's right there in a row. When I need to look for, pygmy Corydoras on a leaf, the clip is labeled that, and I could just grab it from the browser and throw it over. So just wonderful working with Irene. But the point here was that I was going to Aqua Life to shoot this video now for Irene's channel. So we kind of made it as an interview where we got to speak with the store manager at Aqua Life, and Irene would ask questions and he was answering the questions. And I thought it came together really well. My youngest son also helped me with B-roll there I actually shot there for 2 days. I went one day, did the interview, and got a ton of B-roll, took a look at everything, realized what was missing, some things that didn't quite work out for me, and then I went back, got some more, got one more question in. So I had way more B-roll than you should ever have for a YouTube video, because I had to go through all of it, and then, a lot of it was 4K 120. for out of the A7S III, GoPro footage and Osmo footage for different reasons. So, really going through and organizing all of that. And people, if you're working in Final Cut and you're not using your rolls in Final Cut, I don't know how you get through it, because just staring at a blue timeline where everything looks the same, I can't make sense of any of that. I love these rolls and dedicating them as different colors and things like that. That really saved me on that project. That was another 2 days of production for me. And then honestly, I probably put in about 8 days of post on it over a period of time. So thankfully there was no rush on it, because, I'm busy doing my other job, and there was a lot else going on. So I would have to get to it like on Saturdays or late at night and try to knock this edit out. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I'll link that in the description as well. The channel is Girl Talks Fish, and it was our visit to Aqua Aquarium in Rockland, California. But wait, there's more to talk about regarding fish tubers, because another thing I've started is I am now the editor for another channel called Tazawa Tanks. And Zenzo Tazawa has a fun channel where he's just got this beautiful fish room at his house in San Francisco. And he, if you're listening to this, you're not familiar with the aquarium world, you're not big into fish keeping or anything, Zenzo and Irene from Girl Talks Fish both work remotely for Aquarium Co-op, which is a fish store in Edmonds, Washington. But it's also it's so much more. It's a giant YouTube channel run by Corey McElroy. They have a amazing warehouse where they ship their products. They have their own brand, specialty brand products that they test, and they just make things way better than anything else that's out there. They sell aquarium plants, like real live aquarium plants. They super specialize in that. There's just no better place to get your plants from. So Zenzo works remotely in San Francisco doing multiple things for Aquarium Co-op. And he's so busy, he put out a call for help for an editor. So of course I threw my hat in the ring there and eventually landed the gig of editing for Zenzo. And a year ago, I couldn't have imagined doing remote editing for YouTubers. But having worked with Irene now for such a long period of time, and having that be a positive experience, and kind of getting the feel of, how long does it actually take from when I get the notification that there's new media to start working on and, uploading it for their use. How long is this taking? What is it interfering with my life at all? Is it causing problems professionally or with family, or am I just exhausted? I can't create anymore. And actually, I found it to be the opposite. And a lot of that is due to, like I described, Irene's nature of being so organized. I get things and it's not a fight to work with the media or figure out what's going on. It's like I just get these new toys, these new pieces of media to play with, and I can do this on my laptop while sitting on the couch watching YouTube in the evening with my wife. I can do this when I'm on location somewhere doing something else. If I'm just waiting for something at a building, like sometimes I'll have to do that for my primary client. I might be there and I can just open up my laptop, plug in their hard drive and work on their stuff. It's super easy, and it doesn't take that long to get a YouTube video out, because I think they're really doing all the hard work ahead of time. They've planned what it's going to be. They've had to shoot the A-roll and the B-roll for it, and then it's just up to me to paint with the colors they've given me, which takes a lot of the stress away regarding content creation, because when it's up to you, you've got to come up with all the ideas and do all the things and shoot all the stuff. And then do all the edit. So I'm really enjoying this, just receiving the media and giving them an edit. And it's also taught me to just let some things go when it comes to editing. I'm generally very particular, and I go over and over and over things, but with having to put out videos every week and, working for 2 YouTubers plus other freelance stuff and my primary client, it's really helped me develop a faster work pace and forced me to be more flexible about how I edit and generally, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say I don't try to make everything so perfect. I really want everything to be good, but I'm more okay now with letting things be a little messy or trying to accept the facts that, not everyone is going to shoot like me or capture sound like me. And I struggle with that sometimes because I'll get, footage that there's hunting in the autofocus or, audio that is questionable, or the white balance is terrible, or the exposure is off. And, it's different for me where I feel like those things are so crucially important for what I do, but it's not necessarily for YouTube and for the purposes of the videos that I'm making. So it's allowed me to be a little less rigid about perfection, because I can't expect these people to, do all the things I want them to do. These are their channels and this is how they do the things and how it's easy for them. Is these are people with regular jobs plus YouTube channels. So they don't have all the time in the world to nail that B-roll or light everything just perfectly. And now I work with people who do take care of their media really well. But there are little quirks, and it's only because it's not me behind the camera doing the things I would naturally do that I even struggle with that stuff. But the great part is that it's helped me just relax with all of that. And I feel like I'm a way better editor now. I'm just faster, and I'm just more comfortable with things that are out of my comfort zone. So it's kind of fun to make things a little messy or, show some of the setup of what's going on. And that's just something that I've really had a hard time adapting to. But now that I've been editing this YouTube stuff for a while, I love it. And I think there's so many opportunities out there for other people like myself. I mean, I'm no spring chicken. I'm not out running around shooting a ton of stuff anymore. The place I can be the most productive is sitting and editing and putting these things together, and then targeted, controlled shoots out in the field. I used to do so much run and gun documentary style work, and that's just not efficient anymore. It can be fun, but it's not what I'm best at anymore. And I think there's a lot of potential out there for people in this industry to take advantage of opportunities to edit for others, edit for other YouTubers. And I know, plenty of people already do this. But I mean, I hadn't considered it at all until I saw Irene make a post on YouTube last year about needing an editor. And I thought, oh, that would be cool. I love this channel. I would love to help out and try to do this. And I had no idea if it would work out. In fact, I didn't even want her to credit me in the videos, because I thought, well, if the people hate your videos, I don't want to take that responsibility. But and also, I didn't know how we were going to work together. So, I am a little acerbic. I am a little eccentric, and I like things particular ways. And I don't work well with everyone. He doesn't play well with others, people. I'm not always a jerk, but I am an artist, and you just never know how it's going to go with somebody else. And from the very start, Irene has been nothing but spectacular to work with, and so has Zenzo. So if you're curious about what I've done for them, well, if you go to grayfamilyfilms.com, and under the projects page, I have a YouTube tab, And there's a bunch of videos there that I've done for them that exist right there. But I would tell everyone, go to their channels, obviously, Girl Talks Fish, Tazawa Tanks, and check it out. Now, I'm not the sole editor for Girl Talks Fish. There is another person that edits also, but it's credited in the description who edits what. And Irene does a lot of her own stuff at times too. So that particular gig is never very overwhelming. And then with Tazawa Tanks, it's been a really simple process. And I think I've done 5, at this point, I've done 5 videos for him so far. And these are weekly videos. And it's a super fun gig. You got to see his fish room. If you haven't seen the Tazawa Tanks fish room, it's amazing. So yeah. I've been busy, and that's what I've been doing. And I certainly want to get back to telling the story of how I even got to be a professional. But there's going to be no room for that in this episode because I wanted to talk about some fun stuff now. I talked about all the work, but the fun stuff is that let's talk gear. Man, that's my favorite. I picked up a Sigma 150 to 600, and I picked up the Canon mount with the MC11 adapter so that I can use it on my Blackmagic 6K Pro, but I can also have the MC11 to throw it on any of my Sony bodies. And I thought I was okay before. I have the Tamron like 70 to 300, obviously high f-stop and everything. So it's not wonderful. And when I use it, I was using it indoors actually for the West Coast Impact shoot when I was shooting volleyball, because I wanted to get some tight shots of faces of people who were speaking, and some close action, but I needed to be away from, the kids are playing and you don't want to run into anybody. And 300 was I'd prefer to walk out there with an 85 and shoot everything, but I wasn't close enough. So I was using the 300 and it wasn't quite the reach I needed. Even when I was going into like clear image zoom, I go into like APS-C mode and then add clear image zoom so I could get in even closer, but then I'm jacking up my ISO to compensate for exposure and the footage wasn't that great. So I realized this isn't great glass for indoor sports. But I realized that 300 was just not long enough. I needed more of a reach. So after some decent amount of research, I settled on the Sigma 150 to 600. And while that thing is a beast to hold, it's a fun lens to work with. I love that 600 reach, plus being able to go crop mode and then clear image zoom and just get even more reach. And I was able to get a photo of a I guess it's some sort of falcon. I don't know. I'm not a bird person, but this bird that lives close to our home out in our backyard area never really gets close to the house. Well, he ended up getting as close as he's ever been. And I was able to sneak outside and get a decent photo of him. Plus, we've got a lot of squirrels that run around the trees in our backyard and everything. And I've always wanted to just grab some cool photos of them. And I never had anything that had the reach to do that. So now I'm super inspired to go out and do some actual wildlife photography if I ever get the time. I love to do car photography too, but I don't have the time to ever do anything. Actually, as it stands right now, I'm going to try to get out of the house this evening to catch magic hour before the sun sets and get some car shots, get some fresh air. That would be nice. So I can recommend the Sigma 150 to 600, but keep in mind that thing's a beast. You're not going to run and gun with it. You're going to want to get like a gimbal head and a monopod or something if you're using it for a long term. But great glass. And probably, I guess, the most exciting thing regarding gear is that I have a Apple macstudio on its way at some point here. I didn't get to order until March 21st. I waited way too long to order, and it has my delivery set for the beginning of June, but I'm seeing a lot of people are getting their Mac Studios a month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks early. So fingers crossed. So I did order the Ultra with the 64 gigs of RAM, and I think I got a 2 terabyte drive on it. I generally don't care about the hard drive space on the actual computer because I never use it to store media or anything. I just need it to hold the programs, the apps, and the other junk that generally collects on a boot drive. But I did get a 2 terabyte. So I'll be migrating from my late 2019 iMac, which is an Intel i9 with 64 gigs of RAM. And actually, let me look at the video card. I forget what I even have in here. So we are in real time. I am going to About This Mac, and I'm looking at my computer. And so it's the Pro Vega 48 8GB GPU on this, which in this thing has been awesome. This has been a fantastic work computer. I can't say enough about Apple when it comes to their computers. I used to be a huge PC guy. I've built several of my own PCs, but when I started tinkering with Apple and getting into Final Cut, it's a whole different workflow. And what's good for me isn't good for everyone else. But for me, I've really taken to the magnetic timeline of Final Cut and the Apple ecosystem. And I still have a PC that's ready to go, and it's fairly decent for modern specs, but I just rarely actually need a PC. But it's always nice to have 2 computers to have to do multiple tasks with, I guess. But I'll be coming from that 27-inch iMac where I had been using the iMac screen itself as a second screen, and then I had a Vizio 40-inch 4K TV as my monitor, as the main screen. So when Final Cut's open, I'd have my timeline on the main screen, and then on my Mac is where I'd have the browser to pull stuff from. But now with the Mac Studio coming, I'm replacing that 40-inch Vizio with a 43-inch the Dell UltraSharp IPS monitor, which will serve as my main screen, and then to my left, which would be my browser screen, I'm replacing the iMac with a 32-inch 4K BenQ monitor, and then I picked up a 27-inch Dell UltraSharp monitor that will now sit to my right and then be at 90 degrees for document reference and serve as a third screen that I've actually been needing, but I couldn't really do couldn't do the way I'd like with my current iMac. So I'm excited about those things. And I'm going to have 3 brand new screens, a brand new computer. I ordered all new peripherals. So the Magic Mouse 2, I'm going to try the trackpad for the first time. My wife swears by it. I got a new backlit Final Cut Pro keyboard. So I will eventually be reorganizing my entire area, but I'm really looking forward to having everything set up, having a freaking M1 chip finally. Because as much as I'm editing now, and as great as this iMac is, as great as the i9, is, this M1 stuff with Final Cut and all the codecs and the GPUs, it's the whole silicon Apple thing going on is so far ahead of what Intel's doing, and just perfect for my workflow. So I'm really looking forward to less beach balling and less render times. And for the most part, it's not even the render time, because I hit render, I go do something else. I don't even care how long that takes. But with Apple, when you have background rendering turned on and you're waiting for all those graphics or grades or anything like that to process, that's what just kills creativity and adds so much time to the sitting and the blah of the editing. It's just, I can't wait to just be able to sail through the 4K 120 footage of the A7S III and have all of my titles and effects and things going on and not have to really wait for any of that to background render or, drop frames, things like that. So I'm very excited about my Mac Studio, and I will be talking much more about that when it arrives. And before I sign off on this episode of Take 22, I want to just point out that next month is May. And May 25th, 2019 is when we did our day one of production for Madison Baker Was Here, my little indie feature film that is available on Amazon Prime Video Direct. And in recognition of Madison Baker Was Here, I have a couple of interviews I want to share. A couple of the wonderful ladies that helped me make this film took their time to jump on the phone with me and talk about that experience. And I want to share that with everybody. So malfunction. I plan to release those interviews in May. So if I were you, I would go to Amazon and look for Madison Baker Was Here. Make sure you rent it. You could buy it too. And watch it so that you know what these girls are talking about. Eventually, I'd like to talk a lot about that film and that experience, because there's nothing that makes me feel more alive than being miserable on the set of a indie film. It's certainly got its pros and cons, but man, what a incredible opportunity we had to make this, and the people involved who made this happen. I just couldn't be more appreciative, and I think it's helpful to all of us indie filmmakers to hear about the experiences of others so we can learn from it or avoid mistakes or maybe make things a little better. And I can't wait to share that stuff with anybody who bothers to listen to Take 22. And what's the deal with you? What are you editing on? What is your computer? What are your NLEs of choice? Anybody out there order a Mac Studio? Let me know. You can email take22podcast@gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions at all regarding media production or anything that I've talked about, email me and let me know, and I will address that on another episode of Take 22. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'm going to try to get out there and shoot something. So go create.
Thanks for listening to Take 22.